1998. That was the last time Scotland were at the World Cup. And since then, it's been a disaster. From heartbreaks to near misses and moments that still make fans wince, this is every time Scotland failed to qualify for the World Cup since '98. This is going to be a tough video to make. 2002. After France '98, Scotland were still riding the last of the Craig Brown era, ranked 22nd in the world and heading to the 2002 World Cup qualifiers with a bit of confidence. Drawn in Group 6 as the 2 seed alongside Croatia, Belgium, Latvia and San Marino, it quickly became a three-way fight for the top. Scotland looked solid, and for most of the campaign, they were right in it. They only lost once in the whole thing, away to Belgium. But that one loss and a single bad night at Hampden ended up costing them the chance at going to South Korea. They kicked things off as Scotland usually do, a nervy 1-0 win away to Latvia thanks to a 98th minute winner from Neil McCann, and followed that up with a win in San Marino and a draw against Croatia. But the real moment that could have changed Scotland's fortunes came in the home game against Belgium. Scotland were 2 up and cruising, thanks to a Billy Dodds double. But then somehow, they blew it. Belgium pulled one back, and right at the death, they equalised, 2-2. 2 points dropped that would end up defining the whole campaign. Because, when it was all said and done, Scotland finished 3rd, just 2 points behind Belgium and 3 behind Croatia. Win that Belgium game, and the maths flips completely. Scotland would have finished runners-up and faced Czech Republic in the playoff for the World Cup. A genuine shot at getting back to the biggest stage. Instead, it became a what if. After an irrelevant 2-1 win over Latvia at Hampden, Craig Brown stepped down. It ended a remarkable run, 70 games in charge, more than any other Scotland manager. 2 major tournaments reached, and an era that for the older generation will still feel like the last time Scotland truly belonged among Europe's top sides. 2002 could have been another chapter, but instead, it was the start of the wilderness years. 2006. After Craig Brown stepped down, Scotland went for something totally new. A foreign manager, Berti Vogts, the first ever non-Scottish manager of the national team. And let's just say, it didn't exactly go to plan. Before the 2006 World Cup qualifiers even kicked off, Vogts had already failed to reach Euro 2004 and had some absolute shockers in friendlies, losing 4-0 to Wales and somehow managing defeats at home to Romania and Hungary. So yeah, optimism wasn't sky high. Heading into the World Cup qualifiers, Scotland were the 3rd seed in Group 5, up against Italy, Norway, Slovenia, Belarus and Moldova. Not easy, but not impossible either. There is only one word to describe Scotland's start in that group though, and that word is, well, terrible. A 0-0 draw at home to Slovenia, then a 1-0 defeat to Norway, also at Hampden. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, they then drew 1-1 away to Moldova. 3 games in, no wins, and already qualification hopes were basically dead. That dreadful draw in Moldova was the final straw. Vogts was done. When he left, Scotland were ranked 77th in the world, the lowest in their history. From the World Cup in '98 to 77th in the world in just 6 years. Horrendous. Walter Smith came in to pick up the pieces, and to be fair, things did improve. Scotland managed a draw with Italy, beat Norway, and showed a bit of fight again. Though, in true Scotland football fashion, they also lost to Belarus. They ended up finishing 3rd once again, 5 points behind Norway, who ultimately didn't qualify either. The campaign that started as a disaster ended as, well, a slightly more respectable disaster, but there would still be no trip to Germany. 2010. After another 3rd place in 2006, Scotland were desperate to turn the corner. Alex McLeish had come close to taking them to Euro 2008, so close, but then he left for Birmingham, and in came George Burley from Southampton, the man who'd been tasked with finally ending the exile and taking Scotland to South Africa. On paper, the draw didn't look impossible. A smaller 5-team group with the Netherlands, Norway, Iceland and Macedonia, but fewer teams meant fewer games, fewer points up for grabs, and basically no room for error. And it didn't take long for things to go wrong. On the 6th of September 2008, Scotland opened the campaign away to Macedonia, and within 5 minutes, they were 1 down. Macedonia scored early, and that was that. A nightmare start for Burley. They bounced back with a scrappy 2-1 win over Iceland, but any early optimism evaporated as the campaign went on, especially after Chris Iwelumo managed to miss an open goal from 3 yards out in a 0-0 draw with Norway. Next, a 3-0 defeat to the Netherlands showed just how far behind the top nation Scotland were. Then off the pitch, it all got a bit messy. Captain Barry Ferguson and goalkeeper Alan McGregor were dropped after going out for a few too many drinks following the match, a scandal that became tabloid gold and saw them suspended from the next game. And when the results mattered most, they just weren't there. Scotland were absolutely thumped 4-0 by Norway, a result that basically ended any realistic hope of qualifying. From there, it was all about pride. A 2-0 win over Macedonia gave a flicker of hope, but a 1-0 loss to the Netherlands at Hampden sealed it. In the end, Scotland finished third again, level on points with Norway, but behind on goal difference, and a massive 10 points off the Dutch, who won all 8 games. Even if they had sneaked into second, they were one of the weakest runners-up, so the playoffs wouldn't have saved them anyway. Burley somehow survived the post-qualifying review, but a 3-0 friendly defeat to Wales was the final straw. The SFA sacked him, and with that ended another campaign full of familiar frustration. By 2010, Scotland fans had become accustomed to missing out on the big tournaments, so really, it was nothing new. If you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, it massively helps out, and if you're feeling extra generous, why not hit like on the video as well. Back to it. 2014. After the George Burley era, Scotland hired a new boss, Craig Levein, appointed in December 2009. A steady hand, supposedly. But Levein will forever be remembered for one thing. That night in Prague. The night Scotland lined up with no striker, a 4-6-0 formation against the Czech Republic in Euro 2012 qualifying. It ended 1-0 to the Czechs, and pretty much ended Levein's credibility too. Still, he stayed on, insisting the team were improving, and going into the 2014 World Cup qualifiers, Scotland pushed heavily for their first 2 fixtures to be at home. The idea being to get early points on the board. Instead, it completely backfired. A goalless draw with Serbia to start, followed by a 1-1 draw with Macedonia, meant 2 points from 6 at Hampden, and already things looked bleak. Then came back-to-back defeats away to Wales and Belgium. 4 games in, 2 points, and Scotland were bottom of the group. Levein was sacked not long after. Another manager gone, another failed campaign halfway through. When he left, Scotland were below the likes of Panama and Libya in the world rankings. But by the time Strachan got started, qualification was already gone. In fact, Scotland became the first UEFA team officially eliminated from the 2014 World Cup. Although under Strachan, Scotland actually finished pretty strongly, winning 3 of their last 4 games, including 2 against Croatia. It didn't change anything, but it got Scotland back up the rankings, and for once, gave us a bit of pride. In the end, they finished 4th, behind Belgium, Croatia and Serbia, 15 points off top spot, but maybe, just maybe, a hint that something was starting to turn. 2018. By the time the 2018 World Cup qualifiers rolled around, Gordon Strachan was still in charge, and for once, there was a little bit of consistency. Scotland had shown signs of life at the end of the last campaign, and were close to qualifying for the Euros, and now they'd been drawn in a group that had England in it, which always makes it a bit more interesting. Slovakia, Slovenia, Lithuania and Malta were the others, and it actually started perfectly. A 5-1 win away to Malta, Robert Snodgrass bagged a hat-trick, and suddenly it felt like maybe, just maybe, this could be the one. But of course, this is Scotland. The momentum didn't last long. A 3-0 hammering at Wembley reminded everyone how far England had pulled ahead, and as the group went on, it became that familiar uphill battle. Drop points, tight games, and fine margins. But then came that night at Hampden, Scotland versus England, one of the most chaotic, iconic finishes in recent memory. Lee Griffiths scored 2 world-class free kicks back-to-back against Joe Hart from nowhere. Scotland were 2 up in stoppage time, Hampden was bouncing, and let's just pretend that's how it ended. Harry Kane definitely didn't equalise with the last kick of the game or anything. Still, somehow qualification was alive right until the final day. Scotland needed to beat Slovenia away to make the playoffs, and when Lee Griffiths scored early, it was on. But they couldn't hold it. It ended 2-2 and ended Scotland's World Cup hopes. 3rd place again, 2 points short of a playoff spot. Strachan left right after. He'd come so close to taking Scotland back to a major tournament, but clearly it was time to give a new manager a chance. The Lee Griffiths free kicks became something of legend, but 2018 slipped away, just like all the rest. 2022. After years of nearly moments, the Steve Clarke era finally brought something different. He'd already ended 23 years of hurt by taking Scotland to Euro 2020, so heading into the 2022 World Cup qualifiers, there was real optimism. Once again, Scotland were in Group F, alongside Denmark, Austria, Israel, Moldova, and the Faroe Islands. This was doable. It all kicked off at Hampden against Austria, and right away it was chaotic. Twice Scotland went behind, twice they came back. Grant Hanley scored his first Scotland goal in 8 years before John McGinn pulled out a ridiculous overhead kick to make it 2-2. That game set the tone. This team might not always play pretty, but they had fight. From there, things started to click. Clarke's Scotland team became hard to beat. In the end, they lost just once in the entire group. Denmark topped the table, but Scotland finished second, 4 points behind, and booked their place in the playoff. For a generation of fans who'd grown up on failure, this finally felt like a team worth believing in again. 6 straight wins, the country rocking, the dream was alive. And then came Ukraine. Hampden was packed. Flags, noise, everything. But from the first whistle, you could tell it wasn't going to be straightforward. Ukraine were sharper, hungrier, and driven by everything their country was going through, whereas Scotland just never really got going. It ended 3-1, and just like that, the dream of Qatar was gone. It was a brutal way to go out, not in the usual collapse, but just being beaten by the better team on the night. Still, under Steve Clarke, it finally felt like Scotland had their pride back, and they wouldn't have to wait long as they secured qualification for the 2024 Euros in Germany. The only real question now is what about 2026?